Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with a Journalist, brought to you by OnePitch. The guests on our show include some of the most notable journalists who write about topics ranging from technology to lifestyle and culture, health, and science. We discuss the types of stories they cover, their thoughts on exclusives and embargoes, their favorite pitches, and how they connect with sources. Head to onepitch.co and look for the video page to learn more about our new video series featuring journalists from the show. Today on the podcast, we're joined by Kenrick Cai. Kenrick is a senior reporter for technology at Forbes, covering venture capital and startups. During the episode, Kenrick talks about reviewing pitch subject lines, the importance of having clarity in your pitches, the types of stories that pique his interest, and more. Let's hear from Kenrick now.
Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with the Journalist, and I actually have coffee today, so it's a damn good day. I'm Beck Bamberger, and I'm here to interview Kenrick Cai today, senior reporter over at Forbes. Kenrick, welcome from San Francisco.
Thank you for having me. Just realized that I don't have a coffee with me, and also somehow I've gone the whole day without drinking coffee yet.
Kenrick, it's almost noon.
I know, it's wild.
Dude.
I usually need 2 cups by this time, so I'm not sure why I see.
What happened?
Yeah.
That would not happen for me, just to be clear. There would not be oh, shoot, I forgot to get, no. Oh my gosh. I'm admiring you.
Most of the
stamina.
time, I'm in much worse condition when I don't have coffee, so.
Okay.
This is a rare outlier for sure.
Yeah, you're blazing bright here. So, okay, good. Well, I'm glad we have you. Kenrick, I ask everyone this just in case people aren't as familiar, but how would you categorize the coverage of Forbes?
Ooh, that's a really good question. There are a lot of different categories with Forbes. We have our magazine, which comes out, I should know this, 5 or 6 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
We have, the content on our website, but even then that kind of differs. So we have, portion of it comes from people like me that are, on staff at Forbes, but then there's also a lot of stuff that is written by our contributors, the sort of freelancers, Forbes brand voice that is a whole nother apparatus. So I think the number one misconception that people have with Forbes is just they conflate, the first thing they see on Forbes.com with just what Forbes as a whole has become.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, there's
okay.
a lot of different segments to Forbes, I would say. But the segment that I'm on is on the editorial side, doing journalism on staff for Forbes. And the type of coverage we do there, I guess, to go back to your question.
Yes.
Generally more Forbes has a real, I think, mission of highlighting the most interesting stories of entrepreneurial folks, stories like that have a bit more of a human angle also.
Yeah, the actual people. By the way, speaking to your first point, just under the innovation tab alone are 16 different categories, all the way to transportation, sustainability, social media. I mean, it's a vast, deep media platform for sure, just in case other folks aren't familiar.
A lot of different staff writers and also contributors writing about different types of things for sure.
Mm-hmm. Quite a lot. And then, a robust contributor network. Kenrick, how is your inbox with all the pitches you probably receive?
My inbox is, I would actually say, doing a lot better these days. And I think part of that is...
How?
I think I have recently in the last, say 2 or 3 months, starting to take a more proactive approach with my inbox.
Uh-huh.
So now I'm actually kind of making use of the different features of our email client. We're on Microsoft Outlook. Categorizing different things into folders. I think the number one unlock for me is I have important main inbox that most emails default to. As I'm starting to see the same spam emails from the same irrelevant email addresses of people that are constantly sending me irrelevant pitches, I'll move them over to my other tab. And so the quality of things that make it into my main inbox folder has become, I think, a lot higher than before. And I'm spending a lot less time like sifting through pitches that just, are things that I would never cover because they're automatically defaulting to that other inbox now. Which is still check because sometimes something good will end up in there. But
do you check it though to just double, make sure?
Yeah. So basically, like how I think about it now is with the stuff that is going in my main inbox, I'll open all of them, read all of them, and then, decide whether I might cover it or not. With the stuff in the other tab, I'm not opening all of those. I am, just looking at the subject line to like see if it's relevant or not. And then every once in a while, if there's something that seems like it's in that folder, but it could actually be something for me, I'll click on it. I think this has just like helped me in terms of like management and email management, which I have been really, really, really bad at for like the first couple months.
Well, you know what? You're one of the very rare gems I've heard that actually has figured it out and gotten better.
I wouldn't say I've like totally figured it out, but
I didn't say that, but yes.
It's a lot better than it was a few months ago. Yeah.
Good for you. What's a great subject line to you?
I think a great subject line is just something that is like clear from the get-go. Like what is the story here? And it could be like super boring. Like I'm looking at my inbox right now and I have one that's like meeting with the CEO name of, company name. But like, I think that's good because that just like tells me straight up, like, what is the purpose of this email, And like I said, with the stuff that goes in my, like with my main, like important inbox, I will still click on it and just like read through the text. But I think if it's not like quickly clear from the subject line and like the body text, like, what is this pitch? Then I don't know. It just makes everything a lot more cumbersome. So I think clarity is the number one thing I would say there.
Number one. Do you have a subject line, by the way, that you recently have loved that you can share? It's okay if not.
Nothing like super in particular stands out.
Okay.
I think like for my train of thought when I look at these emails is like, and I think maybe this is like different, but like from some, like I just the subject line like is like not really the main thing for me. Like it doesn't really like, it doesn't matter too much as long as it's not like, obnoxious, every word in caps, like irrelevant from like my beat, I don't know, something that just has nothing to do with venture capital, then I'll take notice of that in the sense of like, I'll like delete it. But besides that, I think, it's all the same to me. The key thing is like, is it clear what you're pitching to me if it's a pitch?
Okay, clarity. Do you have a preference on how long, by the way, the pitch should be? You like 3 lines max or bullet points or anything like that?
Yeah, as long as it's not like, like a giant essay of the length of an article or something like that. I think it's all relatively the same for me as long as like it's clear like what the pitch is when I'm reading through, those first couple lines, those first couple bullets. And I guess the other thing that kind of stands out is if you are putting like a lot of stuff into the email, is this stuff relevant for me? It could potentially be like really helpful for me in terms of, say I'm covering a funding round. If you're putting like the basic details in there, that goes a long way in terms of like me not having to like spend time during like the live interview, asking those basic questions.
Yes, you can just be clarifying.
Yeah. So if it's like, if the supplemental stuff in the email is like, relevant to like the type of stuff that I cover, that's great. But if it's like just like 5 paragraphs that go into like super, super technical stuff about like some startups, like latest product is just like a lot deeper than like the type of stuff that I actually cover, then that's probably not as ideal.
Okay. I hope everyone's listening. Kenrick, for you, you mentioned and talked about like the human aspect and elevating that. You've done quite a variety of stories as we look through like the accidental billionaires. I love that piece that's featured on your homepage right now, or your author page.
Today's interview will continue after this brief message brought to you by OnePitch. Are you curious to see the unique ways OnePitch helps PR professionals and marketers pitch journalists? Head to onepitch.co to learn about our new OnePitch score and see how easy it is to find the right journalist to pitch your news to. Sign up for your free account today. Now, back to today's episode.
What for you is like the most fun story you get to do that you're dying to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that's a great example, the one you called out. Like I said, with the different segments of Forbes, we still have our magazine. And I think, doing stories for the magazine is like a kind of rare opportunity, but like the type of opportunity that lets us, go a level deeper in telling, not just like something someone is announcing, but like how this company got here through like all their trials and tribulations. And I think like being able to go that level deeper is like what excites me and is kind of like what sparks my reporting juices,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, there's a real merit to covering funding rounds and new funds and new partners and announcements like that. And I understand that. But I think, the most rewarding stories are the ones that go, one or two or three or many levels deeper than that and kind of get on the ground of what's actually happening rather than, being a specific like packaged up announcement to for a specific milestone.
Mm-hmm. So getting deeper.
Yeah. And I will say though that there's two ways to do that. And I've seen that in terms of like what I'm pitched. And I think like when we're doing a deeper story like that, the vast majority of the time it doesn't come from like a specific email pitch about like from a PR person that's like, do you want to do like a feature story about this? I think it generally comes more, in my experience, from me actually reporting on the ground and getting a sense of what might be an interesting story through pattern recognition and just like talking to, grabbing coffee with a CEO and hearing what like what's top of mind for them on a day-to-day basis, or meeting up with a VC and formulating those ideas over time. I think even with the accidental billionaire story that you were mentioned, that one is very much kind of speaks to that. I think really wasn't going to be like a story in the magazine full 8-page feature from the get-go. But I did an interview with Ali Ghodsi, CEO of Databricks, and it was initially just going to be some short, like 600-word story. I think had a great conversation with him. He really kind of took me under the hood on a lot of things with the company and that whole journey. And he just stood out to me as like a very vibrant character. And I realized, there's a whole untold story with this company that has like reached a $28 billion valuation. Deserves to be unpacked. So it kind of snowballed and evolved from there into this full-fledged story. But I think that's what I'm looking for is like when I'm meeting with someone, like getting a sense of like, who are you and like what are you willing to like talk to the press about?
Yes, that's the other component to it, I'm sure, because some people don't want to tell you the whole story.
Yeah, and I have like really remarkable stories, but they just probably would not want to talk to us.
Right. Do you ever think about that? Like how many stories are truly out there, but will never see the light of day because the person who holds the story doesn't want it out?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have never thought about that.
All the time.
Deep thought.
Now is for me trying to like unpack some of these stories that maybe wanna reveal firsthand if it's just really important to what's going on in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah. Wow. Kenrick, what stories are you watching, listening to? Anything, any which way you absorb stories. We'll take Netflix, we'll take podcasts. What you got?
And are you talking about, stories to do with my beat or just?
No, anything, just for fun, just as a story consumer.
Just for fun. As a story consumer. It's a great question. I think what I've been doing a lot more lately is like actually not, and maybe this is kind of a bad look on my part, but I have not been consuming so much like news content as much as I'm like trying to like just read more like longer form books. Trying
Have
to,
anyone you're in particular?
I'm always reading like 5 books at a time, which is like really
That's
bad.
me too. Yeah.
It's bad because then it just like slows down like my ability
Yes.
to anyone at a time.
Yes.
But I'm reading Cult of We, which is fantastic.
Oh yes, classic
You know,
at this point.
classic for sure at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to do like both like nonfiction and fiction. So I'm reading like 100 Years of Solitude right now.
How is that? I haven't done that one.
Really good. It kind of like reads like a sort of it's like kind of mythical in a sense, or like a fable in a way. In terms
Yeah, I've heard that.
how it's told. It's I don't know, it's very remarkable. I'm really into like magical realism and like surrealism and stuff like that. So
Perfect.
As far as that goes. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like reading stuff like this, I guess the fiction stuff too, but then like, a nonfiction book like Cult of We has been like the reason I'm doing that more and more now, I think, is like just seeing like what all the different angles that a story might come from and kind of like trying inspiration to figure out like what are the right questions to be asking people when I'm, doing interviews with them.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I don't do a lot of
interesting to read and consume stories in a way of then how you perfect your interview style. Also haven't thought about that. Lots of deep thoughts on here today, Kenrick. I like it. Okay, last question for you, Kenrick, and perhaps this is another deep one. Mm-hmm. What do you think the future of journalism looks like?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question.
It's a meaty one. Yes.
It's a meaty one. I am I would say I'm optimistic on journalism in general. I don't know. I think like it's really unfortunate to see how much it's been, squeezed compared to like the heyday of 20 or 30 years ago, right? But I feel like, and maybe I'm in a, privileged position in my current role. I think that we've gotten to a point where like things have kind of stabilized, after that like period of chaos from like after the initial onset of the internet age up to like the mid like 2010s, where it seemed like people just hadn't really figured out business models. Whereas now it seems like there's like kind of like a couple different types of business models that are, starting to work for different journalists. And there's, consideration, like we're seeing all these new, Substack, but then also these like new, like specific, like news publications popping up that are like newsletter first, right? So I don't know. I'm optimistic from like a industry sense that, it's here to stay in a hopefully increasingly stabilized form. I feel like I've been like paying a lot of attention to like AI and like generative AI lately, and like, all the tech that is popping up in the last couple months as far as that goes, like the Dolly GPT-3 stuff. And it's like super interesting from like a coverage standpoint. I think I'm trying to do more and more of these like AI stories, but it's also like there's like AI for like copywriting and AI for writing like marketing copy and AI for like just writing like screenplays even and like creative stuff too now. I don't know. I think there's a lot TBD there, but kind of
quite a bit.
Yeah, it's like somewhat exhilarating and like somewhat scary to think of like what writing just in general like looks like in the future.
Is it writing? Yeah. I don't know. Like, can you imagine like a metaverse where it's just a character reading to you from I don't even know, like in a music. I don't know. We're having an expansive conversation, Kenrick. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I guess did you see Sequoia Capital, like two of their investors wrote like a blog post about generative AI, but it was like written, the byline was like Pat Grady, Sonia Hui, and GPT-3, because I guess they used the AI to like help them write that blog post. So it's really interesting to think about just what that means from like a journalism and writing standpoint. But that being said, I do feel like there is always a place for this like deeper level reporting that kind of goes to that human level, or, you know, kind of going under the hood of a company, whether that's like from a investigative standpoint or just, you know, talking to startup founders and talking to VCs and figuring out the trends that are happening that people would want to read about besides just the one-off announcements.
Yeah, they're very par for the course. I like the deeper dive stuff. Keep it up, Kenrick, basically, in short.
Hope so. I feel like I'm like just like starting to crack the surface, or crack the, what is it? Just at the tip of the iceberg.
The tip of the iceberg.
That I want to be writing.
Yes.
But yeah.
Well, that's the fun. I think that's the pursuit of journalism.
I guess so, yeah.
To find the bottom of the ice.
Finding the bottom of the ice.
Find the bottom of the ice. Well, we're going to end there. Kenrick Cai, thank you so much for being here. Senior reporter at Forbes. I hope you get to the bottom of the ice in your time.
Thanks for having me, Beck.
Thanks, Kenrick.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Coffee with the Journalist featuring Kenrick Cai from Forbes. To learn more about the latest tools on OnePitch and to subscribe to our weekly podcast newsletter, head to our website at onepitch.co. We'll see you all next week with even more insights about the journalists you want to learn more about. Until then, start great stories.